President Trump welcoming Ukrainian President Zelenskyy to Washington today after the historic summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska Friday. A host of EU leaders also arriving in D.C., all hoping to help the president and Zelenskyy hammer out a peace deal with Russia. But President Trump posting this on Truth Social last night. President Zelenskyy of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started, getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change. I want to bring in Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. Senator, I want to get your reaction to the tone we heard from President Trump in that post last night. It seems that his plan may be to apply some serious pressure on Zelenskyy today to come to an agreement, but that means that Zelenskyy has to agree to give up land.
Yeah, sure. Well, good morning to you and to all your listeners. I want to remind everybody that this is Joe Biden's war, but it's also the European Union's war. So think about this. Every day, Russia sells $600 million of oil and gas. Europe is purchasing 10% of that. Europe purchases 51% of Russia's LNG. Look, we've been babysitting Europe since World War II. We have 100,000 troops. We're spending $50 billion a year there. This is the EU's war. They need to be stepping up and applying pressure, not just on Zelenskyy, but on Russia by stop buying their fuel. I mean, how many drones would that pay? So, yes, I'm afraid we're at a point that Zelenskyy has a choice. Does he want to keep fighting? And he's not going to win this war against Russia. Or is he ready to say enough? Let's stop the killing. Let's get the children back. And that's President Trump's goal. And that would be my goal.
Well, but let me follow up on that, because, President Trump has made it clear he wants this to end. He calls it a meat grinder. And that's really what Putin is doing. And Putin is paying an exorbitant amount of money with money that he's getting from, to be clear, oil and nat gas sales to China and to India. But he's using that money to pay new soldiers. He's offering these financial incentives to get more and more soldiers to sign up and fight. It's a war machine. His economy has almost become a war machine. And that's something that Vladimir Putin may not want to see end. So if there's not that wherewithal from Putin, unless he gets the land that he wants, and Zelenskyy says, I need security guarantees, are you and your colleagues willing to promise and help the Europeans with those security guarantees? That seems what this meeting today really, the crux is the security guarantees to Ukraine. Otherwise, Zelensky's not going to say yes. He's going to walk out with nothing.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back. I want to go back and emphasize, you mentioned that China and India are buying oil and gas from Russia, but so is the European Union. Could you imagine during World War II, America buying cars from Germany? But my point on this, yes, we're willing to have some type of security guarantee, but it cannot be unlimited. Europe has to be first. I just wish Europe was as anxious to put their soldiers on the front line, to provide tanks and weapons, as anxious as they are to come to Washington, D.C. and kiss the ring. EU needs to stand up. Look, their economy is 10 times the size of Russia. Russia has an economy the size of Italy. Europe's had almost 4 years now, and they made the promise. I went over there right after this war broke out. They all promised, we're going to crank up our GDP, our percentage of GDP spending on the military, and they don't do it. So they've been setting on this time bond for at least 4 years. And to your point about Putin dragging these wars out, that's his modus operandi. That should not surprise anybody. His culture is different. He doesn't have the same value of life that you and I have, that your listeners have. He's very willing to sacrifice Russian soldiers in order to gain more land, and that's his psychosis.
Yeah, well, and that is why the line is, can Putin be trusted? And eyes were open going into this summit on Friday. Eyes were open for sure with the administration. There's some other things going on here politically in the United States. California Governor Newsom just unveiled this new state redistricting map in response to Texas's own redistricting. His proposed map could potentially reduce California's Republican U.S. House seats from 9 to 4. That means Democrats could be filling 48 out of the state's 52 districts. He's pledging to end the Trump presidency through this effort. Maria had former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Sunday Morning Futures on what this is really about. Watch.
Gavin is now trying to run for president, so what he's proposing to do is go against the Constitution of California, have the legislature vote to take these lines. They don't even draw these lines. They just introduced them this Friday when no one's paying attention. They let, in Washington, D.C., the DCCC send them these lines. And you got to think about what this means to California. Now going against the Constitution, but instead of having 9 competitive seats, it will only have 2. So it's not a 5-seat change. This is a 9-seat change. They take, in counties, they go split counties 116 times, cities 145 times. This independent commission took 35,000 different comments coming in. Even the legislators not even commenting. This is politicians picking the voters, not the voters selecting their elected officials.
Senator, your reaction to those comments from him?
Well, Speaker McCarthy is spot on that it's all about Gavin. Gavin. He's so selfish. This is all about his run for presidency. It has nothing to do with what he thinks is doing what the right thing is, to do justice. So he's spot on that. Look, California has been the king of gerrymandering since the 1980s and 90s. It got so bad that eventually the people there elected a special commission that would form their districts there. They did that, I think, in about 2008. So it doesn't surprise me. On the other hand, let's look at Texas. Texas population has grown, I think, some 7 million people, 7%, I believe, 7% since the census is out. So they have a reason to do redistricting. I do think that the people moving there are more on the Republican side of things. But this is all about politics to Gavin Newsom. All he cares about is himself and his political future.
Well, and he keeps saying he's fighting fire with fire, which is what many of these other governors have said, despite the fact that they've been doing their own redistricting for years. We've seen it in New York. We've seen it in California. Here we go again. Senator Roger Marshall, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it this morning.
Thank you.